Bryan, Mongeau-Eastmond, Maximum Carnage.
Ryan Kastner, Rainmakers.
Joel Watson, Warhawks, right there, baby.
Welcome to Breaking the Huddle. I'm JP Mancini. With me, as always, is three guests from the Flag Plus football community. We have from Maximum Carnage, Bryan Mongeau, from the Warhawks, Joel Watson, and from the Rainmakers, Ryan Kastner. So as usual, guys, we like to start off the show with each of you telling us a little bit about your week and how it went or how your season is going so far. So Bryan, we'll start with you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the season with Maximum Carnage so far?
The season, we're a new team, so it's our inaugural season. We had a smooth transition, I would say, coming into the Flag Football League. We had a convincing win against the Snookers, so we were happy about that. And after that, we lost a couple of games, we won a couple of games, but they all been hard fought. So if we're looking for any silver linings, I can definitely say that we played the Eagles. They're 7-0 undefeated, and we lost to them by 1 touchdown. And I think it went down to the wire. I think there was 5 plays left, and they scored, so that one hurt too. But the Golden Eagles, we lost to them by 1 point. So we're in the mix. We did win against the Mongoose, which is definitely a high point for us in the season thus far. So we know we can play and compete against the best. And conversely, we have to remain consistent because we did lose against the recruits. That's why I don't want to choose to talk about what happened last week. That one really stung. But so we know we just have to work on consistency and not give up a W against weaker teams in our division.
Nonetheless, it's been a fairly good start for you guys considering you're a new team. You have beaten some pretty successful teams so far, so I think you have to be happy with where you stand right now.
We are happy. We're 3 wins, 4 losses. We got a tough game coming up. I believe it's against the Cowboys, so we're going to have to bring our A game.
Well, I mean, you have the next couple of weeks to kind of get yourself into those playoff spots, but obviously you will compete and you have a good chance of getting into the playoffs where you stand right now.
Yeah, that's it. Every game has been pretty much hard fought, so that's why we like this division. And there's, every game it goes down to the wire with us, and so we are looking forward definitely to the home stretch now.
Perfect. And Joel, what about you? Why don't you tell us a little bit about the Warhawks and how it's been going so far for you?
Yeah, me and my partner Bryan, who plays on the team, we put together this team this summer to get it going. And we had some practices going, and I thought we had charisma and a lot of heart. And once we got in the field, we kind of fell apart the first few games. We weren't playing both halves. We were always coming out in the second half. First half, we couldn't adapt. We've been trying to, as a team, adapt to the offense, especially our defense was falling apart. Then lately, our defense got kind of strong, and our offense just completely fell apart because we're trying to get more charisma in the game. The catches are really bad lately, and a few games we had some hard teams, and some probably came from higher divisions last year, but we just got really bombed from the time bombs that just played. They bombed all over us. We had a really bad week. We were missing some star players, and we didn't come through for that 1 hour of football whatsoever. So we got to rebuild this week and get ready to play another game next week. Will be the Monsters.
Well, the silver lining for you guys, I think, is you've played perhaps the best team in your division very well so far this season. You did play the Patriots or Patriots early on, and you put up a pretty good fight with them. So I think if you can get your game to that level consistently, I think you guys have a chance to play against some of the better teams in the division.
If you see the teams we've played, when we play against high-level teams, we come to play. We play 2 halves of football. Because one thing my team is heart. The whole team, we're just a bunch of guys with a lot of heart. There's nothing but heart on the team. But when we play against lower ranked teams, we come out there and kind of slack off. And there's only 1 half of the 2 halves to get played. And things fall apart the last few minutes of the game, which have happened in most of those games.
Well, then again, you still have some time to try and get some wins, and it is your first season, so there's still room for improvement.
Absolutely.
And Ryan, obviously we all know your team, part of the Rainmakers. You've been in the league for a few years now. Again, a little bit of a rough season for you guys. Why don't you tell us how it's going, or perhaps what's wrong with the Rainmakers right now?
Well, it's tough. We're kind of in uncharted territory. We've usually been an above 500 team. We're struggling a bit this year. The big problem from past years is we're losing a lot of close games that usually we come out on top, and maybe it comes down to a bad call or 1 play or 2 plays. And I guess in a league as tight as Division A, where basically every team can win on any day, you have to make those few critical plays, and you know, we haven't been doing that yet. So, you know, we still have a lot of guys missing, and towards the end of the summer, they should all be coming back. So hopefully we can turn it around in time.
Well, you still have a couple of weeks left to get your team in that win column, obviously, and I think we would expect you guys to play for pride and kind of get a few more wins at the end of the season. I don't think anyone would have predicted the Rainmakers to be 0-7. Is it 0-7?
Yeah.
At this point. No problem. I'm not trying to offend
Thanks
you,
for reminding me.
but I mean, if anyone watches these games, it's not that you guys are getting blown out. You have been competing.
Well,
really
yeah,
hard.
I would say probably there's been 2 games where we've been thoroughly outplayed, but every other game I think we've had the ball to end the game with the chance to either have the tying score or the winning score, you know. And if that's, you know, we're talking with the team, we said this year we've just been really good at losing. You know, we put up 51 and allowed 52, and when we hold the team to 24, we only score 23. So. Yeah. You know, that's basically the problem this year, but I'm not worried. I mean, as in Division 1 in the winter last year, one of the teams started 0-6 or 0-7 just like we did and ended up making the finals. And we're fortunate that 6 teams get to make the playoffs this year, so all we need is to string together a few wins and get hot at the right time, and I'm confident that we can beat anyone on the right day. So.
Perfect. All right, guys, now we move on to some of the major topics where we'll have everyone get in the discussion. The first one is about the subbing rule for flag football. It's a little bit different in Flag Plus than it is in some other leagues, where we don't allow you to just bring anyone in off the street, especially in the lower divisions, and have them play for any game. It's not like people can just walk in. We do have some restrictions in order to keep some continuity. And in Division A, it's a little bit different, where you guys can find players. For you, you've said it's been a little bit tougher for you this season to find some guys, but nonetheless, it's a little bit different in Division A. And then for Division D, for Joel and Bryan, you know, you can't have guys from the higher divisions right now, from A, B, and C, sliding into that D division just for the sake of trying to keep it fair. We would like to have all the teams remain constant. Do you guys like that rule, or is there some changes that should be made? Joel, why don't we start with you? Is there something you'd like to see changed about that, or do you like it the way it is?
No, I don't like it. I think if you're bringing on a player, it's because someone has to leave from the team, and you'd have to do a trade with a contract, with saying that a player is leaving, or he's splitting the season, which we had to do with one of our main stars. He got married and went on like a four-week honeymoon.
His wife just wouldn't let him play any more football.
So therefore, what we did was we asked him and another player to split the cost, both sign up, and one would leave, and you've seen it in our roster that person's been gone for almost 4 weeks, and we had another player come in. And therefore you have a sign sheet that goes to, you know, the league. Instead of someone just bringing on a player and saying, well, give us $7, which I've heard of lots, to help out with the payments of the team roster, and then they're gone for that week.
Well, the guys that you're bringing on, they're not guys from the league right now. Another teams, they're guys who are friends of yours. You're bringing.
Yeah,
into
it's
the
a
league,
team we made, which we made a deal with someone.
Well, so that's a different. That's the kind of thing we do allow, to have guys who aren't playing in the divisions come in.
But at the same time, he as a team member paid to be part of the team, instead of, like, I'm hearing from my buddy Bryan here today that they played against a team that has 3 stars that came out of nowhere that you might not even see next week, what we're coming back to is maybe people bringing people on their roster to play in a game, to get one win to help them off in the playoffs so they can fit themselves in to the lineup.
So you think we should, if there are guys, let's say for subbing, you want guys who have been on the roster, you know that they're on the roster and they should be able to play.
Instead of a name on the sign-up sheet right before the game, and then you never see that name again because they're wearing someone else's number for that certain week.
Yeah, Bryan, what do you think about that? Do you agree with that, or do you think we should have something different?
I think he brought up a lot of valid points, and it's because at the same time, speaking for ourselves, Maximum Carnage point of view, we're new to the league, so we don't really know the other teams, so we want to kind of do our homework to know who we're stacking up against, like, you know, who's get a lot of receptions, who's a key defensive player, who's a rusher, who's the quarterback. Kind of find out, does he throw the long ball a lot, because you can kind of tell from how many yards, you know, he's thrown for,
or yards per completion as well.
You know, exactly. So I mean, that kind of gives us a good idea, you know, touchdowns, etc. It kind of gives us an idea who and how. Basically, what I'm trying to say is it helps us form our game plan of, you know, we're going to put him with him. I think they kind of like match up well together. So when you come into the game and it's like you see 2 people that you've never seen or their name is on a thing, it's like, okay, well, that kind of switches up your game plan. It's like it kind of catches you by surprise, and it's like, well, I don't know this player yet, so I got to have to kind of see all right and then make the adjustments. Of course, that's football, it happens, but heading into the game, we have a game plan. We want to try to follow through with that. So I'm not in favor for you know, just having somebody just come in like that.
Okay. And Ryan, you've been in the league long enough now. You've seen a lot of these restrictions and rules, so you know how it works. How do you feel about it?
Well, I'm coming at it from a bit of a different
Of course.
perspective than the other guys. With Division A, I mean, I probably have the toughest job, not even playing, getting enough guys to show up. I mean, as I was telling you before, you know, aside from me, everyone else is student. They're traveling. You know, they're off during the summer. Everyone has, you know, everyone's busy, and sometimes it's really tough to get guys to come out. Understandably, what I find really tough for me is the minimum games played, whereas some guys, you know, whether they're traveling or they're injured, just can't physically make it to a bunch of games.
Particularly in the spring, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's not really a problem in the winter, but even then we've had problems in the winter. You know, and then so they've, you know, for instance, we have a guy, C.A. Sinat, who's one of probably our best player. You know, he lives
great
in
receiver in CIS as well.
Yeah, exactly, and you know, he's in Trois-Rivières for the half to 3/4 of the summer, and he's going to come next week and start playing with us. You know, so hopefully that should help. But it's tough to sort of, you know, get guys and then have them be eligible for the playoffs. And it's hard to even get replacements because a lot of the I guess it would be DB teams, there's a rule that you can only send 2 guys. So really, what doesn't make sense to me is that really when we're pulling a guy up just to help us out, and he can't, and it's just because he doesn't want to screw over his own team. Right, exactly. For instance, Paul Kamel, who played with us in the spring league last year, wanted to come play with us one game, but he had to say he couldn't because two guys on his team had already played in DA. So I mean, it's a tricky situation, as these guys could attest. I mean, it really sucks when a team basically pulls out a ringer for a game. We've had issues like that against us. So something to suggest is maybe submitting, as Joel pointed out, maybe submitting a roster at the beginning of the year. And so as long as you basically put them on your team, then they could be eligible. And then the call-ups, if they come up for a game, it won't affect their team because they're already on their roster, and there'd be, let's say, a max 2-game limit that a guy could sub for you or something.
Well, I mean, that's a rule that a lot of guys have talked about specifically this year, with having a guy play one game. Let's say he moves up to a division for one game. The league, what we do at this point is we automatically label him a Division A player.
Right, exactly.
So do you think we should maybe change the rule? Anyone can jump in on this one. Should we change the rule so that if a guy plays one game or 2 games in a higher division, we shouldn't necessarily label him as a Division A player or Division B player, whatever it is? Do you think we should change that rule? Ryan, what about you? What do you think about that?
I don't think, because if he's only playing for a game or 2 in a higher division, and let's say he's a Division C player, I think he should still be, referred to as a Division C player. I don't think that should kind of hurt his chances, or a Division D.
So you think we should have a limit? Does everyone agree with that? You think we could have a limit for let's say he plays 1 or 2 games in a higher division, we should still label him a Division C player or B player?
If it's 1 or 2, I agree with that. If it's like half of the season, that's a different story.
So we should have a limit.
Games, I think
so.
I like that.
Does everyone agree with that?
But you do have a kind of limit, because don't you have, if someone, on your roster, you have to have a certain amount of games that person plays, or he can't even play in the playoffs? Exactly. Which is kind of what you are saying, except if someone's going from another division.
What we're saying here is if a guy, let's say he can play 1 or 2 games, not necessarily play in the playoffs, but just, let's say Ryan's team is missing a guy, they need a guy to play for that week.
Right.
Can we let him play 1 game in a higher division? Yeah.
I don't think that'll bother the higher divisions, because they're thinking to themselves that this person is from a lower division. Even though that person might be a very high priority player, an athlete. I was more fighting before about an athlete coming down into a lower division and helping out a team that really had no point, you know what I mean?
Okay, yeah, absolutely.
But I don't think, what you're saying, I would agree with you, because...
So we can all agree that perhaps a rule change would be in need here.
It would help me out.
Particularly the Rainmakers would help them out a lot.
But it would be like a maximum of 2 games, because you don't want... Because then everyone's just mixing it up.
No, I agree. I think the maximum of 1 or 2 is a good rule. I think everyone tends to agree with that. If you ask a lot of the players in the league, they would all agree with that, I think.
And also what you could do is a lot of these guys who've subbed for one team, you could let them sub for other teams, so it would make the guys who want to play more, they could, and who are willing to, it would sort of loosen the restrictions on them at the same time, and make you wouldn't have these situations like we had last week where we were 6 guys.
Yeah, that's tough.
And I don't think anyone wants to see me play defense.
It's a good idea, but I disagree, because then now it's too much of a mix-up. You have
flip-flopping, right?
Everywhere. No, the real main thing is you guys could choose as the presidents, the amount of games.
Well, I'm definitely not the
But
president. I can
it
assure
would
you they don't give me
it
that
could
title.
only be one team. Because then you're just mixing it up way too much. And it's turning it to hockey. You're switching players, you're...
I kind of agree with that in a sense. It's like, you play against one team and you see that guy and it's like, well, he's on another team, and another team. Like there should be a limit after that. It's like he's Mr. Everybody,
No, it's a topic that every year we have things like this that come up, and it's going to be something that will be contested forever in this league because there's so many players, there's so many teams, and often there's problems. So obviously we can't please everyone in the league. It's impossible to please everyone. But I think the way it's going so far, we tend to have some. I like the restrictions that we have in terms of keeping some guys away from lower divisions. But I think you've all brought up really good points, and there are definitely some tweaking that needs to be done for every division. We're going to move on to something different now. Bryan kind of brought this up a little bit before about doing your homework before the game and looking at the stats and the stats that we keep. How do you guys like the way that we keep the stats? Are there things that we're missing, or is there something that we should keep track of? Perhaps conversions, or for receivers, first downs that they catch. What do you guys think on that? Ryan, I'll start with you.
To be honest, stats are stats. I mean, it doesn't really mean anything. I mean, maybe even for if you want to get a feel for the other team, you can look at the stats. But I mean, from one game to the next, could very well change. In terms of a stat that you might want to keep, something you said conversions. That'd probably be. I know a lot of guys would be interested in seeing that. It would help, especially for looking at other teams, looking at how they do trying to convert. Mm-hmm. That would probably be helpful.
Realistically, you could game plan knowing that a team is horrible in their conversions.
That's right.
Some teams who usually go for 2 might decide, we're going to go for 1 because we know we don't need to get as many conversions at this point. Yeah. So that would be one thing. What about you, Joel? How do you feel about it?
Conversions. Stats, interceptions. You find out who's the top defensive players in conversions, because you're playing of a minimum of 20 yards into that end zone. Mm-hmm. And it shows you who plays the real man on the team, who comes to play. Because when you get burnt on a touchdown or wherever on the team falls down for a few minutes. And in those 2 seconds, that next play, you can really find out who's out there to play. Number one. Number two, I would love to see, I follow the internet. I have 6 days of study board for each game, like Bryan was saying. I'm there every day. I spend a good half an hour on each player. I love the way you guys roll it out with you even give per game. You just have to go deeper into it. What I'd love to see is the scores per half.
Well, we have that. You can check. If you look at the scores,
there you go.
When you look at the scores of the game, you can click on it.
It was worth coming today.
Exactly. You always learn something when you come on Breaking the Huddle. You can check, and it does say what the score was at halftime, so you can check how it was per game.
That's number one. Number two, I know this is asking a lot, but it's a real good one. If you could have like in red or like a red tick or let's say a red square or something saying that that person was absent that game, you could find out that maybe because that team lost, they were missing a key player in the game.
Oh, I mean, if you do look at this, I mean, it's a little bit more complicated.
You could tell if someone has 0 of everything.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, just to click on it and see, okay, whoa, this game someone was absent.
Even if you check the list of the games that they've played, it says how they performed against each team towards the bottom.
So exactly.
You can always
tell if it says 0.
It takes a little bit of searching, but you can find all those things.
Doesn't it tell you how many games you played?
It does tell you how many games you've
So I
played
guess
as well.
if you're week 7, then you would know if there's only 5 games or 6 games.
Exactly. So you know how many games they've played.
Just gotta dig a little deeper, though, right?
Yeah, you're right.
Keep digging.
45
Keep
minutes.
digging.
You
must
be really on there, Bryan.
Yeah.
Well, we have specific guys who know. If you have any questions on the website, speak to Ben Joseph, who plays on my Division C team. The guy spends most of his day on the website, so he should have all the information for you if you need it. So apart from that, there's no stats you'd like to see kept or get rid of. I think the conversions, obviously we'd like to keep those stats, but it's very tough. You have to remember, even in professional football, they don't keep stats on the conversions. Those are things that they kind of completely ignore. And I guess in terms of that, that's kind of why we do it. Plus, it's a lot more to keep track of. I mean, the scorekeepers already have a lot to do, so to try and take one thing off their plate makes it a bit easier for them as well. But obviously, it would help to know.
You could just put a little mark next to the guy who scores the conversion,
Where
just like a touchdown. Yeah.
Okay, we could. It's possible we could do that as well. Bryan, did you have a comment?
For the defense, when you have like all the stats of all the guys in your division.
Yeah.
Is it like offensively and defensively? How is it defensively measured? Is it just purely like solely on tackles? or does interceptions come into that?
Well, I think when you click on the defensive stats at the start, it does show based on tackles, but you can click on each stat and then it'll break down who leads in each stat for you. If you click on the headline for that specific stat, it'll tell you who leads from interceptions. If you click on sacks, who leads in sacks. So all that information is up there. The system that they have in place is fairly good. They do a lot of work on the website, but you can check all those things as well. So, I mean, if that's good, we'll move on to the next topic, which we talked about a little bit before the show, and that was the pass interference penalty. Because this is something that I think a lot of people have a problem with, and that is, if there's a pass interference penalty right now, the penalty is 15 yards, and then an automatic first down. Now, in certain leagues, in the NFL, it's to the spot of the foul. How do you feel about that? Joel, what do you think? Do you think we should change it, or do you like the way it is?
Keep it the way it is.
You like the way it is?
Because as far as I'm seeing playing, I haven't seen that much pass interference, and the refs are very, they let it go. They know that we're out there with a bunch of men trying our hardest, pulling around. I've never been, there's other stuff, other roughing things that I don't like, but with that I'm fine with it.
So you like the 15 yards first down?
It's not called a lot. I mean, maybe I wasn't in a game that it was called a lot, but...
So perhaps it's just insignificant at this point. You don't feel it needs to be changed?
Not at all.
Bryan, what about you?
I think, and this is week 7 now, we've never even had a pass interference. So, but I would advance the ball like 15 yards, not to the spot of the foul is, because I mean the field is relatively short in itself. So I think 15 yards, that suffices.
I think that would be the argument for the most part in the league, is the fact that the field is not, it's not a 100-yard field. You're looking at half the size.
What did they do in flag arena football? Because it's kind of like similar in the sense like it's such a smaller field and you have less guys flying around. I don't even know what they do with that.
I'm not even sure in arena football league. It's not important enough for me to follow, so I would not be able to tell you the rule. We'll have to go. Ryan, do you know what the rule is for that?
I don't think the league
I don't watch it either, just because it reminds me of it, like
we can all agree that nobody watches arena football league. That's one thing we've established. But apart from that, we have to check the rule for that. And Ryan, what about you? How do you feel about the rule, especially as a quarterback?
Obviously, these two are defensive guys, so obviously I have a bit of a differing opinion. Look, obviously it's not a penalty that comes up often, but every time it does, it could really be a game-changing play. You know, on a long pass, if a guy takes a guy down, you know, he'd gladly give up the 15 yards if he's legitimately beat. And when you're playing a good defense, you don't have very many chances where you can really, you know, go for the kill. Maybe something where you have a bit of an option, let's say an automatic 15 yards, or if the ref feels that
it was clearly
an
attempt to just take the guy
exactly,
out of the play.
call it, let's say, an intentional pass interference, then it could be a spot foul.
Okay, and I think that would be a good rule. I mean, and also it depends on the division. Do you feel it's different in Division A than it would be in? I know you haven't played in lower divisions, but do you feel that it's a little bit tougher in Division A because you have a lot of guys fighting for those balls hard, especially guys that have played in the league for a long time? They know a little bit of the tricks, you know how to get away with
100%, and guys know which refs are more aggressive or which refs sort of keep the whistles in their pockets. So and also the field's still small, and there's a lot of speed out there. So collisions happen, and sometimes there's pass interference even when guys don't mean to. They're just running through the ball. Yeah, there's contact all the time. It's you can't take that out. Even though it's flag football, you can't take it out of football. And it might put a little bit more of an onus on the refs, but I think by and large they do a pretty good job. So what's
so perhaps an option. So that's a rule that maybe we can look at as an option. All right. Well, now
we have a big debate about that too, because then it becomes like a you know what, it was a hard foul or it wasn't. It becomes a judgment call, and that too. Where do you draw the line on that one?
But you know what? Just about every penalty is a judgment call. Did the guy jump? Did the guy dip his shoulder?
Yeah, that's true.
Is the guy inbounds or out of bounds? We don't have instant replay.
Maybe that's another thing. Should we have instant replay instituted in flag football?
Absolutely not.
I don't think. All the talk with all the instant replay issues in soccer, maybe flag plus football needs to join the rest of the major sporting leagues and start instituting instant replay. That's my personal opinion. I don't know. We'll have to speak to the powers above to see if we can get some instant replay.
For a small cost increase.
We're working on it.
Yeah, exactly.
We're always working to improve the league, so perhaps we'll have that. All right, we'll move on to the next topic that we have, and it's not really a topic. It's more for each one of you, where we have commissioner for a day. So this is your chance to either change a rule, add a rule, anything about the league that you would like to see added or taken away. It's your chance to sound off on it. So Bryan, we'll start with you. What is your rule for Commissioner of the Day?
Weekday games. I know it's tough. I know a lot of the time it's based on availability, but in my perfect world, I mean, weekends we all have lives and other commitments, and it gets tough to get people to come out. On the weekend, everyone has dinners or friends or significant
Particularly
others.
the Rainmakers. All the McGill boys have a lot of dinners to attend, so
exactly.
they move the games away.
We all got to eat, so.
But I know I may have an inside scoop, a little bit of rumor that perhaps in the future we'll start seeing some weekday games for flag football. It's just a matter of timing, but perhaps we'll see that in the future.
I'll keep my fingers crossed.
And Joel, what about you?
The jumping rule. I think it's a simple rule that we can get over. Pull it out of the rule books, and I think it would change the game tremendously.
So you think guys should be allowed to jump running with the ball?
I understand it maybe has to do with like danger on the turf and it's a safety rule, but from everything else, I don't think it interferes with anything at all to do with the game.
No, I mean, I think the argument in this case would be the fact that if a guy is running and jumping, it's hard enough getting that flag while a guy is running full speed right past you. You add in the jumping aspect about it, then all of a sudden you have guys who are perhaps falling forward, gaining to fight for those extra yards, which we also don't allow. So that guys have collisions. It does add a whole new dimension to the game that, like you said, danger for one, and difficulty for the defense. It's already difficult enough for the defense, I think. This is an offensive-centered league.
Yeah,
so
you're absolutely right. I can't agree with that, but we're allowed to cut. We're allowed to break ankles. When you cut, you can spin. So you can make a rule that you can jump, but you can't jump forward, which is like a nose. You could put something in the rule book saying no nose diving. We have that rule where you can't jump with the ball. Just a jump as you're running, I don't think that would be
more jumping straight forward.
As you run, or just a rule that, because I mean the ref sees you do a spin and your both feet are off the ground and the flag's up. And it happens a lot and they're very strict on it. And that's probably that and flag guarding, which I agree completely with flag guarding. It's perfect. But the refs are dead on those two things. I mean, there's 5 of those a game when we play. And I would love to have a game without that. And my only other thing would be like, I mean, I would love to even just be in the playoffs, but it would be to say that playoff games would be longer. Like, an hour and a half instead of the 49 minutes.
That's a good point.
Or like the championship game, I'd love to be there. Would be like, instead of 45 double 45 minutes, like each quarter.
Two halves of 45 minutes.
Yeah, it's 49. Sorry, it's 49 minutes.
It's 48 minutes of running time.
So each half in the championship game would be 48 minutes. And if you put that this year, at least I'll go out there and support whoever's in the game.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of people would love to have longer games. That's for sure. I think a lot of us feel we'd love to have those few.
But we're
extra
thousands of teams, and not thousands of teams, but I mean thousands of kids on one turf, cut into 3 feet. You can't do it. It's impossible. I understand.
It's hard.
But as the season goes on and we progress and teams are cut off, I could really see that happening.
No, it makes sense. It's something definitely to look into.
I do like that, because sometimes you want another 10 minutes of the game.
Just to heat up. That's when it gets to heat up at the end of the game, right?
Give me 13 rounds instead of 12, that can go a long way. But
what's your rule, Bryan?
The hook and lat is a play that I love, and I found out that we can't do laterals past the line of scrimmage. So that's something that I would definitely change, because I don't see why not. Because if you have a guy running 10 yards, he does a hook, and hook and lat basically. A lot of
the Boise State play, right?
Something like that. We've done that a lot. When we were just playing for fun out in Concordia, we were like 20 guys just playing at Stingers Field, just practicing, trying to form the maximum carnage. And we used to run that play all the time, not knowing that
you can't do it.
We couldn't do it, and that was our bread and butter, And you find out here, it's like you can't do it. It's like, okay, it's a.
I mean, in that case, I think we've had people who have often asked to have laterals put in the league, and there's actually, if I remember correctly, there was 1 week when there were laterals in Flag Plus football. I can see Commissioner Campana laughing in the background, so we know that it was in there for a while. But the problem was that there are no fumbles in the league. To remember that. So if you have a guy throwing it backwards, there's no real risk for them. So if they're throwing it backwards, it's nice to say, look, they can lateral it, but what's the risk for them? They don't have any chance of losing the ball.
Well, a dead ball, and you lose yards, kind of like a bad snap.
Perhaps dead ball, but does the risk outweigh the gain from it? You could perhaps end up with a touchdown, or you could lose 2 yards. I mean, one doesn't outweigh the other. It doesn't balance the other out. That would be the argument for that one. But I mean, all of them are good points. I think a lot of people would agree with each one of the rules that each one of you said. There would be some people who agree with it, some people who disagree, but they're all good points. So we'll move on to our last segment, where we have individual questions for each person. I'll ask you one at a time. We'll move down. Bryan, we're going to start with you.
Oh, okay.
The first one is Maximum Carnage, a new addition to the league. What has the adjustment period been like for Maximum Carnage? Has it been tough, or has it been fairly simple?
I learned quick in this league that nothing is really simple. To not take any game or any opponent or any victory for granted. It's hard to win in this league, and that's something that I think Maximum Carnage learned early on, and that's something that's going to stay with us. What it comes down to is just our consistency. Like he mentioned too, you're playing top-notch teams, and you play two halves. You play to the last whistle. You play against weaker teams, and it's like that intensity is not there anymore, and it's like why not? And that's something that we really have to work on, and we're still trying to find our identity as well. But I just love playing in this division. The group of guys are great, and week in and week out, guys come to play. Mm-hmm. So that's
So you feel it's been a pretty good adjustment so far, and you're working on it. It's a matter of
We're
consistency.
definitely working on it, and sometimes we find like we're hitting our stride, and we practice sometimes, and it's like great, and you come Sunday, it's like where was that?
Mm-hmm.
What happened? No synergy sometimes, and that's something that we're just gonna have to work on, because we're a good group of guys off and on the field. We're friends, and it's just to translate that. We're not playing up to our potential by far.
It takes time sometimes. Joel, for you, like Maximum Carnage, you're a new team to the league. You have some guys who have been in the league before. You've mentioned.
Yes.
Do you feel like your team has been improving? I know you haven't won a game to this point, but I mean, if you look at your games, I felt from watching that you guys have improved. How do you feel about the improvement?
After the first 3 games, we improved. We really did improve a lot. Our team started to learn to adjust, especially at halftime. You adjust and you make those adjustments so that when you come out for that second half, the changes are really going to follow through, and each player gives their 50% to the team to make 100% out of each player. Mm-hmm. And this last game we fell apart. I think we came with big heads. We said this is the final game that we're just going to take apart. Everyone thought we would destroy them, and that's why I think no one came out to play this week. Also, we've had a really hard time with getting everyone out to the field on Sundays. Mm-hmm. Families, injuries, taking up 2 of our players. Mm-hmm. So I hope the charisma's back there next Sunday. This was the wake-up call. I'm not just looking for a win. I'm looking to end the game and know that we all came to play, mm-hmm. and we stand together as a team, because it's been hard. There's always someone who falls apart, and I want my team to have fun, and we're not having fun lately. Mm-hmm. And no matter what, if your team's not having fun, it's when it comes to the weekend, you don't really want to show up to the field. So it's a very important part. And I know that my team's on the internet. They're checking out their stats. They're taking care of their bodies during the week. So I think we just need to take the whole package and close that box. Mm-hmm.
So it's just a matter of time for the Warhawks, you think, before you get it together?
Well, it was there. We came out to play against the big teams. We had a good 3-week run, and this week we're back in the ditch, and we're just going to have to pull ourselves up with some chains and get going for
mm-hmm.
next weekend.
Good. And Ryan, for you, I think it's a little bit different. I mean, your team's been in the league for a while. The question is, what is wrong with the Rainmakers? What do you do to fix the problem that you guys have created for yourselves?
Oh, the answer is always tougher than the question.
That's why you're answering, and I get that.
I wish it was one thing, but I mean, I think if you spoke to every guy on the team, they'd all give you the same answer. From a personal standpoint, I've made too many mistakes, and I'd love to say it's just me, but everyone has everyone has plays that they want back, everyone has games they want back, and it's too competitive a league where, you need everyone firing on all cylinders to beat a good team. And, we've had too many guys either miss plays or, myself probably more so than anyone, and so it's not really, it's just staying with it, staying positive, and working hard, and I'm sure it's going to come. Mm-hmm. It's not like we're getting blown out off the field. So it's just patience and staying positive and working hard, and it's good.
Like Joel said, you just kind of dig yourself out of that hole at one point, right? You just got to pick yourself up and
right. I mean, big thing. You don't want to try too hard. You can't win 5 games in one pass. You got to start one play at a time. And that's just what we got to do. We got to, as cliche as it sounds, we just got to, take it slow and work our way out of the hole we dug ourselves into.
And I think anyone thinks that the Rainmakers can, at this point, after all the experience, they can do that. And Bryan, for you, what do you feel is the greatest strength for Maximum Carnage? I mean, you guys have beaten a very good team in Mongoose in Division D. What was your strength that allowed you to beat that team?
I would say that our focal point, I think, rests with the defense. I know headed into week 7, I think we were second, like for defensively, for points allowed behind the Eagles, and that's definitely something that guys on the team take pride in. So, as of now, I think our offense has a lot more potential than what we're showing. We got a veteran in Mike Mandel as quarterback, and he's been a terrific leader for us, a vocal leader too. But right now, as it stands, our defense is definitely carrying in the weight. So,
I mean, that's a good way to start. Any good team can start with a good defense. Obviously, it's a great building block. Joel, tell us a bit about your role with your team. I mean, you specifically on the team, where do you see yourself fitting in?
Trying to like show the guys that I'm bringing my heart the whole game and they have to follow me. Because, you know, the first game of the season, it woke me up. I came out there and the first half was just sloppy. So I said, you know, I remind myself that you got to come out to play both halves. I'm trying to keep the team together all week on the phone and stuff like that, and trying to, you know, show them that adapting is flag football. Adapt. We started off against the Patriots for like, let's just say, to give an example, we knew that Etienne Chauvin, I think his name, the quarterback, is the best quarterback in the league. But we knew that what he did is he drives everyone down the field and then he runs 50 yards. So we stopped the run completely that game. He couldn't run. And then as the game continued, he said, well, I'm going to throw deep. And we stopped the deep. That was our best deep game on defense. Our safeties came out to shine. But what did he do in the second quarter? He adapted as a real quarterback would do, and he played in all our little pockets and zones. He found the holes, and he moved down slowly, 5-8 yards, 5-8 yards. And it showed that you have to see what's going on. You have to go with the flow of the game. It's so quick and easy. And in flag football, that field may be small, but with a certain amount of players on the field, it turns out to be a big player for that quarterback, a big field for him to find where he has to go.
Yep.
And you can, when Bryan's saying we love watching the internet, but when it comes down to the game, if a quarterback understands that he's being eliminated in something, he'll find something else. And that shows you that in this league, a good quarterback and a good rusher on defense, I'm saying, from both sides, are such key aspects to winning games. Because I noticed that some player rushers are really quick on defense, but they don't have like the football skills to understand to follow the snap, or to follow the count, or to follow where the ball or the trick players are going. They lose it. But the star players don't always have to be fast for rushing. It's just about following the ball.
So reading the play.
Yeah, exactly, reading the play.
Okay, Ryan, for you, we talked about how you used a lot of different guys this year with the Rainmakers. We want to know, what if you could have any guys on the team, let's say you could have 8 guys on the field, one of them is you, who are the other 7 guys? I mean, you've used a lot of guys. Who are the other 7 that you would want?
The 7 guys who've been on
for a long time. Well, let's hear it. We want to hear names. So who are the 7 guys? I mean, you've used a lot of different guys. So we want to hear the 7 names. Who are the 7 guys you'd want on the field with you?
7. I think we're a 9-person team, so I might have to add one. But
that's fine. No, we can't count very well at the FPF,
Perfect.
so you just pretend.
Well, you know, I have my brother, who's one of the only guys on the team who's never played, and Derek's picked up the game. You know, he jumped in Division II without ever having, played a snap of football in his life, and from day one, I don't think he's missed a snap. He's just been solid. Then I have, my old running backs who, as a quarterback from McGill, you sort of, you get close with them. So Alex Bassandri, Mike Saman, maybe not the best hands, they'd be the first out, but these guys can run, and they know how to play. Lee Kiley, Dan Adler's was a great cornerback at McGill. And then my receivers, Chitty, Bobby,
the favorite guys.
CA, there's the guys who basically I spent the most time with, during my time in McGill. So those guys, and then a new addition who we had is Ben Leger, who he knows Saman and Lee. So he joined the team last year. We needed a guy in the winter, and he's been just a phenomenal addition too. So he's away in Hawaii now, but I know he's coming back soon. So
it's just a matter of getting those guys on the field at once.
Yeah, well, it'd be nice if we could have all those guys together at the same time. So
I know you would prefer to have all those guys on the field anyways. maybe not some of the other teams. I don't know if they'd like to have CS not playing against them all the time. Bryan, last question for you. Who's one guy in Maximum Carnage who doesn't get the credit that he deserves? Or a guy we don't hear enough about, or we probably should hear about?
Well, you said you guys are bad with numbers here, so I just can't name one guy.
We'll try. Let's try and cut it down as much as we can.
One guy that doesn't get enough credit?
Yeah.
I'll give you one guy from both sides of the ball, I
Okay.
guess. Iman, he's been a force on defense. I think he's had 4 or 5 interceptions in 6 games, and he's just such a big presence. So, yeah, definitely a leader on the defensive side of the ball. Offensive side, you may not agree with me, though, but I'm going to have to go with our quarterback, Mike Mindell. A great guy, better player, and I don't think that, right now he's getting the recognition that he deserves. And because it's not just, obviously the quarterback position is so vital to the team, but I mean, I remember a couple of games, guys have just been dropping balls or tipped and it's interceptions, and it's completely out of his hands after that, that point, so stats don't always reflect his performance. So I'd have to go with those 2 guys.
Good. Joel, for you, just a quick answer here. You have 3 games left on your schedule. Is there one that you think we're truly going to beat this team? We're going to get that win under our belt?
I'll never let any of those teams even have a smile as they watch this on the net, man. Never. We got Monsters, we got Mongoose, and we got Afro. You guys wrote that our only game we might win is Afro.
You guys would be me. Let's not try to
We're coming to play. We got 3 weeks. Each Sunday's a new day of this season. So Monsters, we're coming to see you guys on Sunday, man.
Oh, that's good. We have some friends of the Weppel Moazab. We hope that after his bragging the past couple of weeks, we'd love to see you bring him down a few pedestals to try and kick him out, Teach the Monsters a lesson. It would be nice to see that.
But they do have, they've been around for a while.
They have been around for a while. Since the beginning. Some of the guys have been around since the beginning.
I read that last season. And bring it. Let's go.
Good. And Ryan, we'll let you get the last word. The last question for you. Where do you go from here, from the Rainmakers? At the end of the season, do you try and rebuild, or do you stick with those same guys and just go with what you've done for the past 3 years?
Well, we had our first year when we played in Division II. We had a really strong season. I think we were 9-1, and we decided we had a choice where we could either go up or stay in Division II because we lost in the semis. And we decided to go up because, look, we're all competitors, and we didn't enjoy. We had 2 or 3 close games, and we were blowing everyone out. So, although it sucks that we've lost a few games, most of them have been very close, and we could just as easily be, I think we played 7 games, so 4-3 or 5-2 or however you want to look at it. So I don't think where do we go from here? I think we just keep going, keep playing, and I don't think we're an 0-7 team. We've missed like I said before, we've missed basically 1 or 2 plays every game. So there's nowhere really to go except just keep playing.
I think a lot of people would. That's why some people respect the Rainmakers and what you guys done. You try and you play for the integrity of the game. You do move on. You don't let anything bring you down. You don't beat up on lesser teams when you know you can play at a higher level. So I think that's good, and we appreciate everything. All of you guys coming on the show. It's been great this week. Thank you for coming, and hopefully we'll see all of you guys next week on Breaking the Huddle, where Ross Castleton should be back. So. We're expecting the viewings to be a little bit lesser, but we'll see what happens when he comes back. Anyways, thank you very much for me and from Bryan and Joel and Ryan. We'll see you next week on Breaking the Huddle.